Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. What I was trying to actually show here is what does it mean to say that a country is a consequence of colonialism? At one level, India is impossible to think of without its passage through colonialism. But I think that is far too simple, because what India consists of is not a singular entity. It's not a singular nation. It consists of a wide variety of axes of conflicts, of integration, of collaboration, of a diverse landscape of different sites through which India is being produced and reproduced. And when we look at this trajectory and we look back at colonialism, then I think we need to look at colonialism not as a singular entity that produces a singular nation as its other, which is often what I think is a problem, and a problem that nationalism isn't able to address, even if it is critical of colonialism or post-colonialism scholarship. What I think needs to be rethought is the nature of colonialism as consisting of a multiplicity of sites, some of which are coordinated, some of which are less coordinated, operating within a loose economy, but not a singular whole. And what I was trying to underline here is that these different sites produce not completely integrated policies. They produce different kinds of pressures, different kinds of pulls, and it's the self-activity of the colonized, sometimes fighting colonialism, sometimes collaborating with colonialism, sometimes in between, and so on and so forth. That self-activity which is of different kinds, which is internally conflictual, but which is self-active because the grounds for that self-activity lies in the multiplicity of sites, not just in the fact that there is something outside of colonialism. I think that is very important, and I think this kind of meta-narrativization of colonialism or singular narratives of colonialism need to be rethought and re-examined. That's one. Secondly, see, one is actually what I'm looking at is a very sad and unhappy picture, which is the subalterns in disunity, not in unity. And that's very sad, and unfortunately I'm condemned to do research on that. Instead of a celebration of subalternism and the unity and so on and so forth, and the narrative of subaltern kind of coming together. What is actually important is not just the subaltern elite distinction and whether the subalterns unite and the elite or the elites are disunited or whatever, or the other way around, or both are united or disunited. See, what is important is not just the construction of communities as an effect of categories. What I'm trying to really show is that the categoric imperatives or the drives behind community formation are not by themselves self-sufficient. They have to intersect with other kinds of social processes, some of which collaborate with the category of communities, which are themselves in motion, and some of which may produce different trajectories. Class, for instance, can be absorbed into communalism, but class can have its other trajectories. Class can also intersect in different ways with gender and with other kinds of divisions and so on and so forth. So when we look at this kind of landscape of intersecting trajectories, one thing is to say, of course, that everything is relative, everything is, and use some kind of a chaos theory to map this out. And here it becomes, that's why I was kind of underlining the importance of the present. It's important to recognize, define, specify formations that are there in the present in order to understand the ways in which different sites, different axes come together to form one kind of formation. Whether it's communalism, whether it's nationalism, whether it's class or gender formations and so on and so forth. It's important to distinguish the formation, but above all, to define the contours and specificities of the formation, of that formation, with a view to looking at the different sites that produce the formation and which is being reshaped by that formation itself. And that's very important, it seems to me, and it, I think, also ties up with some of the concerns with history and so on and so forth, with which I won't go into. But for me, that is very important to identify the specificities of the present in order, it seems to me, to also identify the pastness of the past. That is, it's only by present that you can start grappling with the way in which there have been breaks in the past, the way the past has produced different formations, some of which have come into the present, some of which may have gone elsewhere. And that's why I was saying that 30 years of independence was relatively peaceful. All of us were very optimistic. You know, this Hindu-Muslim conflicts are a thing of the past. You know, it was all kind of Muslim landlords and Muslim reactionaries that were heading for partition. And then suddenly we are confronted after 30 years by this new formation of Hindu communalism, which is actually like the old formation, and yet it is new. It is aspiring towards hegemony. It's within a context of globalization, liberalization, and of nationalism as well, of a cultural nationalism, which has shifted from economic nationalism. So the new, totally new coordinates and new formations, which nevertheless echo and revisit formations in the past. So both, I think, it's very, very important, it seems to me, when one is doing, at least within the discipline of history, to not just look at the past as origins of the present, which immediately gets into the teleological mode. This is, in fact, the basic assumption behind nationalism, behind so many of other kinds, not just nationalism, but so many other kinds of formations, when you start looking at history as the telos of the present. I think, on the other hand, one needs to kind of look at both these things. So therefore, one has to be a historian of the present, which in some ways look at the present retrospectively as something which is out there, not in it, but out there, so on and so forth. But anyway, I won't get into that. And finally, the decolonization negotiation between British metropolis and Hindu community. See, the idea of negotiation is normally, and decolonization as negotiation is normally talking about the narrative of decolonialism. When you talk about the freedom movement, the national liberation movement, and this is the classic narrative, the national liberation movement that challenges the colonial empire, and then because it is led by the bourgeoisie, and because the bourgeoisie is afraid of peasant and subaltern rebellions, it comes to some kind of a compromise and hence a negotiated settlement with colonialism. My object of investigation was not that. It was not negotiation between the British and I'm talking of a different trajectory from one of the established narrative of colonization and decolonization. A trajectory that cuts through colonization and decolonization, namely the conflict between Hindus and Muslims, which is present in the, under colonialism and outside of it. And this is a trajectory, and these are certain trajectories, and I think getting back to some of the points that were made by Saurabh and by so many of us in the that we need to now open up the relationship between colonization and post-colonization and look at the different sides, the different trajectories in which it's working, not just within a meta-narrative of colonialism versus national liberation struggles. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Tenemos un grupo de preguntas para el profesor Diouf. Yo las resumiría, porque hay dos que son más o menos parecidas. Hay tres preguntas que cuestionan o le interrogan al profesor sobre cuáles son las características de la situación colonial en términos de extracción colonial. Es decir, si existe una situación colonial sin extracción colonial, preguntan específicamente por qué los términos de esclavitud, de esclavos, mercaderes no fueron incorporados o no han sido incorporados en su reflexión, y si es posible hacer una caracterización más precisa sobre el tipo de extracción colonial en el caso de Senegal. Un segundo grupo de preguntas se resumen en el interrogante sobre las diferencias o las analogías posibles entre los términos comunidad, tribu o grupos tribales y religiosos. Si es posible hacer una diferenciación de estas tres categorías, y adicionalmente hay dos preguntas que interrogan sobre si al interior de estos grupos comunitarios se presentaron conflictos o tipos de confrontación derivados de la particular característica de la situación colonial que se presentó en el caso de Senegal. Finalmente, hay una pregunta que quizás sea con la cual se pueda cerrar esta sesión de interrogantes al profesor Diouf sobre la posibilidad de contestar la afirmación del filósofo congolés citado en la conferencia de la imposibilidad de salir de la biblioteca colonial, y si efectivamente es necesario cuestionar de una manera radical las categorías coloniales para romper la estructura mental que impuso la cuestión colonial. De manera que son tres temas que le pido al profesor Diouf que intente dar una respuesta. No es fácil, ya que sería casi una nueva conferencia.
Merci pour les questions qui sont des questions importantes. Donc je vais les prendre telles que présentées. Pour la première question sur les caractéristiques des situations coloniales et s'il y a possibilité d'avoir une situation coloniale sans extraction, en fait, ma réponse serait à deux niveaux. Le premier niveau, c'est que le terme de situation coloniale a été mis en circulation par un sociologue français qui s'appelle Georges Ballandier. Donc Ballandier écrit en 1952, je crois, et c'est publié par les cahiers internationaux de sociologie, un texte. Et le titre de ce texte, c'est « Sur la situation coloniale ». Et en fait, quand on regarde la littérature sur les questions coloniales, les questions essentielles soulevées par Ballandier ne sont pas prises en compte pendant au moins 40 ans. C'est dans les années 90 qu'on commence à reprendre en fait ces travaux. Et c'est intéressant à plusieurs niveaux. Ballandier a été formé comme un anthropologue, mais il réclame le statut de sociologue. Et vous voyez, dans les années 50, quelqu'un qui dit « je suis un sociologue de l'Afrique », ça n'a pas de sens, parce que la sociologie, c'est la science des sociétés modernes. L'anthropologie, c'est la science des sociétés primitives.